I'm pleased to introduce our three panelists today, who will each give brief remarks and then take your questions. I'm going to start with Lynn Harsh, who is Vice President of Strategy for the State Policy Network, which is the umbrella group. Every state has at least one public policy, free market, advocating think tank. So if you're not familiar with yours, please either see me or Lynn and we'll tell you where yours is located. She is the former co-founder and former chief executive officer of the Freedom Foundation, which is Washington State's premier think tank. She left the field of secondary education to work in politics and eventually public policy. And she found her niche as an idea entrepreneur, crafting and executing strategies to solve problems, hiring great leaders and teams, innovating and evaluating. I first met Lynn in 1998, where she was establishing the Freedom Foundation with Bob Williams on the top floor of a fireplace store. Walls then were boxes of printed materials spreading the message of freedom and fighting the Washington State Teachers Union. In the spirit of full disclosure, I have to say that I've been privileged to be a Freedom Foundation board member since 1999. Lynn finds joy in her grandchildren, cooking, gardening, and college basketball. Amy Smith, who I just had the privilege of meeting yesterday, is co-host with Matt, who is the handsome gentleman sitting over the table over there, on the radio program called How to Make Money in Stocks on KRLA AM, Los Angeles Conservative Talk radio station. She is also the Investor Business Daily Meetup Development Director, and she is a national speaker for Investors Business Daily and is one of the regular hosts on IBD's TV's Market Wrap video on investors. You know, I tried to find some information on her, but you know, Amy Smith, there's an awful lot of Amy Smiths on there. But I did find an article when your talk shows began, the two of you. And there was this wonderful quote that she said, "I have been reading Investor Business Daily for 18 years, and it's made me very successful. It was so helpful." That she wanted to work for the Investment Business Daily to help others also become successful in their investments. And each week, they weed out all that noise you hear on all those other stations using very time-tested rules. Now here's someone, I thought to myself, who has taken her passion and then can go and work and get paid for promoting her passion, which is such a wonderful thing. She's very lucky. June Thornton is the co-founder and former president of WOW, which is Women of Washington. It's an organization for the education and empowerment of women of conservative values. Since its inception in 2004, WOW has grown to over 300 members with followers from all over the world and has opened additional chapters, including the WOW Young Professionals, the WOW Book Clubs, and recently, WOW Movie Clubs. June and I met in 2005, where she and two other dynamic leaders were organizing conservative women into the WOW group. For the next few years, we had great fun bringing national speakers to the meetings. June and the other founders have been able to transition their organization to the next generation of leaders, which bodes well for the longevity of the organization. After graduating from the University of Washington, June moved to New York City and worked on Wall Street. She worked her way up from sales assistant to becoming first vice president at Drexel, Berman, and Lehman in Seattle. Currently, June serves as advisor to WOW and its editor of its weekly summary of political and cultural punditry, Window on WOW. She's married and the very proud mother of 2 achieving young women. Shall we start with you, Amy?
Whatever way you'd like to do.
Okay.
Well, let me tell you a little bit more about Investors Business Daily. The paper was founded in 1984 by William J. O'Neill, who is the legendary investor that began investing in the 1960s. And his investing approach has outperformed all other growth strategies for decades. Bill created the paper with 2 goals: to share his successful investing approach and to make sure that individual investors and entrepreneurs had the same detailed information that previously was only available to the professionals. Well, the paper was a huge hit. Secondly, he wanted to provide editorial content that was not getting out there because of the liberal bias in the media. So IBD is really about free markets, investing for the future, and liberty. We have a passionate editorial staff that's dedicated to discovering and revealing the facts. A great example of the content comes from IBD editorial cartoonist and 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner Michael Ramirez. Mike says he has the best gag writers in the business, politicians. So let me share with you some of Mike's my favorite cartoons that Mike has done. You can come take a look at these a little bit closer. This is Obama as Moses, leading us to the promised land. Wait a minute, it's that way. And you've all seen Toy Story, right, with Cowboy Andy and Buzz Lightyear. Here's Obama as Buzz Lightweight. You got it. The national debt to infinity and beyond. And here's Obama as the most arrogant president ever. America's credit rating, downgraded for the first time in American history. The highest black unemployment rate in 28 years. The worst jobs record of any American president. A record number of Americans now rely on food stamps. But the good news is that President Obama has visited almost all 57 states. On a daily basis, in addition to our own incredible editorial staff's articles, we run syndicated articles by Charles Krautheimer, Thomas Sowell, Victor Davis Hanson, Sally Pipes, Michelle Malkin, and many others. These articles really show what's going on politically in America. And there are some series that may help you in your activist work as you spread the word. And the newspapers are on the table there. Please take a look at them. We have articles such as The Audacity of Hope and The Audacity of Socialism. President Reagan said that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Look at Greece and the European crisis if you want to see America's future if we continue on the same path. The stakes are high in this year's election. It's going to require some commitment and some work to get a new president elected. So the first step towards making a difference is to be well informed. If the real facts get out there, it can be a game-changing year. So we really hope that IBD's content will help all of you stay on top of what's actually going on instead of what you see in the nightly news. Some of our recent editorials have covered the Misleading of America series, such as Lies Beget Lies on Obamacare, The Redistribution of America and the Challenging of Marx. Compare the Communist Manifesto to Obama's record. It's eye-opening and it is ominous. Some other editorials we've done are Not Such a Great Jobs Recovery. Romney struggling with men versus Obama. Obama is appealing more to men. Oil and Gas, Fact and Fiction. This is a 15-part series with solutions to the problems. Abraham Lincoln said, if I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend 6 hours sharpening my axe. So studying the issues carefully is what will make the biggest difference in this election. The liberal media turns a deaf ear to some very important facts. So it's critical that you are all involved in getting the word out. It's up to all of us. We hope that IBD can arm you with pivotal information, and be sure to share it. You can influence other people if what you present is the truth. It is hard to refute the facts. On a state and local level, you can all be Breitbarts. Andrew Breitbart exposed Acorn and many other left-wing agendas. No one knew what these organizations were doing until Breitbart exposed them. If you're inclined to write, you can submit an op-ed piece to our paper. We sometimes publish them. Here's another way that you can get involved. I'm director of the Meetup Development Program, and we have meetup clubs that meet monthly to discuss investing topics and to learn more about the markets. We are the fastest growing financial meetup club in America, and I think the reason for that is the face-to-face communication, like what we're doing right now. You get together with like-minded people and you discuss the issues. So you can start a meetup club or a different type of a club in your community and talk about conservative women's issues. It doesn't matter how many members you had. How many members did you have when you started off? Pretty small? 5. You can start with a couple of people. Just get started. If your group, including you on the college campuses, if you are there to inform, educate, and discuss issues that people are concerned about, your numbers will grow. And the next important step is to network with other people, to share information, and that way you grow in size and in influence. Look at the Tea Party. They've been so effective because the large numbers that were gathered could not be ignored, even by the mainstream media. Changing hearts and minds begins with being educated about the facts. You can get our IBD editorial content for free with a nightly newsletter that we send out, so be sure to see Matt or me before you leave. Ronald Reagan said so eloquently, you knew that in the end it was free enterprise, not government regulation, not high taxes or big government spending, but free enterprise that has led to the building of a great America. I wish you the best of luck in your journey towards returning America to greatness, and may you move with the speed of lightning. As Will Rogers said, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. Thank you.
Lynn Harsh, next.
Yeah. Well, it's marvelous to be here, to be inspired by so many like-minded folks, and even those of us who don't always have like minds, when we can talk to each other about things that are deeply powerful in our lives. And it's true that I've had a privilege of organizing, and rallying lots of volunteers over the years. It's been one of my favorite things to do. But there's an image that I keep in my mind of a flywheel. In layman's terms, a flywheel, just think about this, it's where torque is applied at just the right place, at just the right time, in just the right amounts, to create energy disproportionate to the original pressure that was applied. We are not going to be able to win this epic battle for freedom unless we think about that flywheel and operate like that. Let me talk to you about somebody who I think of as torque. Let me introduce you to Marie. You'd like her. Friendly, giving, fun-loving, cheerful on the outside. Genuinely now. Wasn't always that way. She got married in her early 20s, had 3 kids, stay-at-home mom for most of those years, school volunteer, had good gut instincts about freedom, but no real knowledge about it. Husband, self-employed, but chronically underemployed. Most of her life, no health insurance. Oldest son had great promise as an athlete. She always thought that would be the way for him to get to college. But there were always challenges with health screenings and shoes and clinics and things to go to for her athlete son. Her middle daughter's thyroid completely shut down when she was a teenager. Her youngest son, learning problems. She scrimped on groceries all those years so that she could help her kids, so that she could help pay for expensive medicine for her daughter, so that she could try to get help for her son with some learning challenges, frustrated with the school because it couldn't accommodate his needs, wouldn't accommodate his needs. And some of them were pretty basic, by the way. Frustrated at not being able to build a relationship with her healthcare provider and to learn more about how to get well and stay well. She had her own dysfunctional extended family, and her own health began to fail at that point. She was scared and desperate for help. You can put yourself in her shoes, perhaps. Maybe you've never been there, but maybe you know someone who has. But imagine for a moment her situation. She was screaming out for help. And like so many people, quietly screaming for help, like so many people in this country did not know where to turn. And it seemed that government would be the answer. Now that's, perhaps in this room, we wouldn't think of that as logical. But if you have a dysfunctional family, you're broke, your husband's out of work, you don't have health care, your own skills in the workplace aren't what they ought to be at the moment, that's a hard place to be. Fast forward to today. 2 years. It's only been a couple of years. Marie, and I'm not using her real name, by the way. She's a real person who I adore. She does logistics for a freedom-based organization that supports 600 freedom warriors in 50 states with combined budgets of about $90 million, all working toward freedom. That's what she's doing today. How'd that happen? Well, here's what didn't happen. Nobody lectured her on the details of how free markets could and should meet her needs. Nobody told her she should vote smarter, and that would solve all of her problems. Nobody gave her a lecture on manipulative monetary policy. Here's what did happen. A handful of people engaged in her life deeply, provided some immediate and practical needs, helped her polish up her workplace skills. A handful helped her understand the benefits of liberty to her personal life. The benefits of liberty. By the way, that freedom organization is the State Policy Network, and she keeps us all on the road, doing what we need to do. Lifts our arms up, keeps our spirits going, day in and day out. More than her part. Now, what does this have to do with activating people, putting legs under all the things that we believe? Well, here's the thing. We cannot grow a winning majority with knowledge alone. I wish it weren't so. Being a school teacher and somebody who grew up with no television and books all around, and though I had liberal parents, the dinner table discussions were fascinating, always about ideas. Ideas and knowledge that's just part of my life. It's so important to have knowledge, but it's not enough. We have to persuade the American electorate somehow that self-governance is essential to their own well-being, that limited government is required for peace, for prosperity, for opportunity, that those institutions that undergird our republic are fragile and must be protected, that a permanent ruling class will destroy our future. Yep, they need to know that, and we need to know it, and we need to talk about it. And as Amy so eloquently just said, the information's there for us. So what are we going to do? Well, it starts with something really basic. And I don't want to lose you here, but it's really pretty basic, the very first thing we have to do, I think. This is my opinion. We need to be likable. We need to be approachable. You know, I remember hearing about the little red hen story, and I remember thinking, yeah, well, she's right. but she's also crabby. I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. Well, that's what we're like sometimes. I told you so. We could use, a friendliness facelift here. To be approachable, to be warm. And then there's another thing, and Barb and I were talking about this when we met in Seattle not so long ago. There's a really cool secret here. Start by asking people what they want. What are the outcomes they desire? Chances are we're going to agree a lot. The gulf is how to get there. Don't most of us want everyone to be able to have affordable, quality health care? I hope you want people to have access to quality, affordable health care. We disagree with liberals on how to get there. And the disagreement is severe and it's real, and I'm not trying to polish over that. It's just by starting with agreeing on outcomes, that's a place to start a conversation. Be solution-oriented. We all know what we don't like. Do we know what we do instead? Can we articulate it in winsome ways that draw people to the ideas? Have your own flywheel radar. This is point number 3. Have your own flywheel radar. Look for people who have circles of influence. And they may be small. They may be seemingly small, like Margaret Thatcher. Her father was one of her greatest influences as she watched him be a shopkeeper. And then reading Friedrich Hayek's work and meeting him eventually. Handful of people influenced her deeply. And look what she was able to accomplish. Many of you in this room can say the same thing. You look back on your life and you can pick a couple of people who changed the trajectory of your life forever. Be that kind of person. Look for that kind of person. I think about Marie, who now is helping in ways that are like that flywheel. Just amazing things that she's doing with her talents. Give people a way to have a voice, to be productive with whatever it is that is unique to them. Not everybody is going to be able to knock on doors. Some people would prefer to stuff envelopes. Some people would prefer to give a speech. My druthers, I'd never give one. But that hasn't been my druthers. I haven't been able to do my druthers in my life. But whatever it is, help people find a voice of all ages. And then here's my favorite, and I will close with this. Learn to describe freedom's benefits, not just its features. Those of you who have some sales background know that, or marketing, or creating products, you know that if a customer comes in the store to buy, let's say a drill, and the salesman starts to talk about all the benefits, the features of the drill, and what you wanted to do is come in and buy a drill to put a hole in your wall to hang a picture. And not the benefits. Why do you want this thing? What are the benefits of liberty to the people who we say we want to influence? If we dump all of our knowledge on them, the factoids, the features, but they don't know how it's going to benefit them, sorry, we're not going to win them. We really need to get better at this. One of my favorite speakers at our annual meeting last year was Chip Heath, Stanford professor. Wrote one of my favorite books is Switch, How to Change When Change is Hard. And he gives this quote I just love. The rational mind wants a great beach body, but the emotional mind wants an Oreo cookie. We humans buy an emotion we justify with facts. That's the way it is. Why do we treat this most important, precious gift of freedom any differently? Let's help people with the emotion and the facts. So, imagine, going back to Marie, imagine talking to people about the benefits. What it would be like if you could build a relationship with your children's teacher and have that strong, good relationship. Just you and the education professionals, or you could choose to educate your children differently if you didn't think should be in maybe that particular setting, like maybe homeschool. Whatever way you thought was best to educate your child with disabilities. Imagine to be able to help people to understand what it could look like for their children to have that kind of opportunity. Imagine helping parents understand what it would be like for the health care of their ailing children. If we could change our healthcare system so that it could be patient-friendly, so it could put the patient first. Imagine what would happen if we could paint such a persuasive and winsome picture of the benefits of liberty that people then were eager to learn about how to make that happen. Marie, will you help me? Will you help me get the politicians and the expensive bureaucrats out of the way? Get them out of between you and your doctor, between you and how you want to educate your children? But you can't start there. Why should she care? That's where we start. So, that's my plea, is that we will think deeply about persuading people on the benefits of liberty. Now I'm going to end with one of my favorite quotes, David McCullough, one of my favorite authors. Oh, I hope you read McCullough. Just amazing writer. In his book, 1776, he writes about what George Washington asked of his very bone-weary troops. This was December 30th in 1776. My brave fellows, you have done all I ask you to do and more than could reasonably be expected. But your country is at stake. Your wives, your houses, and all that you hold dear. You have worn yourselves out with fatigues and hardships, but we know not how to spare you. If you will consent to stay 1 month longer, you will render that service to the cause of liberty and to your country, which you can probably never do under any other circumstance. Well, the stakes are high for us today as well. Most of us are, are not worn out by cold, hunger, neglect. Surely we can render that service to the cause of liberty. For in this day, we know not how to spare you either. Let's keep working at this together, and let's get this won. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. June? I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
That's because Barb remembers that when we sat down around the table at the very beginning of WOW, and I was asked to be the president, I said, well, I'll be the president if I never have to speak in public. That didn't work out. To understand our organization, how it came about, and why I wanted to do this, I'll give you a quick history of Seattle. And that's a quick history of Boeing. Thank you, Bill Smith, for reminding me of that. In the early 1900s, Bill Boeing had a boat company. And he came from a pretty wealthy family, and he used his money to start this boat company. And then he got really fascinated with airplanes. And he built this airplane company next. And, people started working for him, and the company was gradually growing. And we came to World War I. The federal government needed airplanes. And so lots of orders went to Boeing. And Seattle began to grow a little bit more. World War I ended, and the economy kind of tanked. And, unions started forming, and a lot of disgruntled people were growing. World War II came. Thousands of airplanes a year were ordered by the federal government. Lots of people started moving to Seattle. They relocated to Seattle. There were lots of job opportunities. And the city grew, and the communities outside of Seattle grew, and traffic became a problem, so roads had to be built, and we started having clashes. There were, in the 1950s, then came the idea for the supersonic transport airplane. This was going to move people around the world really fast. And all this money came from the federal government to subsidize this project. And other countries were doing this too, and it was kind of a race toward the supersonic transport. The 1960s came, and the anti-war sentiment had grown, the environmental movement had grown, and government started to listen to the people who were unhappy about what was going on with all this growth that had occurred. The lakes were getting a little dirtier, and everybody was starting to take notice of this, and they turned against this growth. So the 1970s came, and a billboard went up in Seattle that said, "Will the last person to leave Seattle turn off the lights?" The economy had totally tanked. And once again, people were despaired, and they turned to the government for help. So that kind of was the foundation for why I could see that people had to rely on themselves to gain strength. So when the opportunity to come to WOW occurred, we got together and we said, well, how do we form this organization so that women will feel emboldened to speak out about limited government, self-responsibility? And we said, we've got to educate more women, because we're going to parties and we're talking to people, and we're kind of gauging, should I say anything or not? Oh, I'm a conservative. Oh, you are? You're a conservative. Okay. So we got together and we would meet around my table, kitchen table, for lunches. And a lot of the women here who were at the very beginning are here today, and still part of the organization, which is just great to know. And like Lynn was saying, a lot of us are so much alike. The right is the same as the left. In Seattle, we wear our North Face jackets. We're holding our Starbucks cups. We all kind of look alike, but we have some very different opinions about how the country should grow. So, by word of mouth, we started growing this organization. We're kind of flying under the radar, and because it was kind of scary to hang out there and say, I'm a conservative. But we wanted to learn more things. So we decided that we would form groups of women gathering in friendship to learn about our government and the political process. We would help women develop critical thinking skills and stimulate thought processes about economics, education, energy and the environment, politics and government, global issues, personal responsibility, and moral character. We started meeting in homes with guest speakers. And we were very lucky. We found speakers from several excellent policy institutes like the Freedom Foundation, conservative professors hiding in our state universities, eager for a like-minded audience, local and national talk show radio hosts like Michael Medved, economists like Wall Street Journal's Stephen Moore, John Lott, CNBC's Michelle Caruso Cabrera, Diana Furchtgott-Roth, journalists and authors like today's esteemed luncheon speaker, Michelle Malkin, Star Parker, David Horowitz, judges, politicians and candidates, lawyers and doctors, filmmakers like Anne McElhaney, who we met here at the Clare Boothe Luce Policy Institute, the military, USAID, sheriffs, the CIA, ambassadors, education reformers, rabbis and reverends, energy experts, and special people whom we met at the Clare Boothe Luce Policy Institute like Kate Obenchain, and someone Michelle knows very well, the Young America's Foundation, Ron Robinson. By word of mouth, friends bringing friends, we grew WOW. And quickly we had a new challenge. A good one, but still a challenge. Where do you put a meeting for 300 women? And how do you keep the organization intimate? We established a phone tree with volunteers who keep members connected. We use email and social media. We host book clubs in smaller settings. New WOW friendships have created bridge groups and golf groups, and they continue the discussion. They've brought more and more friends together. As Barb said, we started a movie group. We started a young professionals group. In fact, one of our young professionals is here, Valerie. We're always thinking of more opportunities to gather women together to learn. We have a weekly newsletter that reaches, as Barb said, around the world. But what are our challenges now? Among college-educated white women, Romney polls 19% behind. We need to show the paradox of why women who have so long fought for independence are willing to be over-dependent on government. We need to be able to do a better job teaching financial literacy, particularly since the number of women and women voters now outpaces men. To make informed decisions, we need to understand economics, the Federal Reserve, the money supply, what Paul Ryan is proposing, Simpson-Bowles, Dodd-Frank. We've got to be effective with technology and social media. 73 million tablet computers and almost 500 million smartphones were sold in 2011. The internet is the cutting-edge medium for political exchange. The cell phone is a very effective campaign tool. We need to find and support leaders who can best articulate and employ our values, locally and nationally. We've had members step up to run for office, and we're on the constant lookout for women to join the PTA, the local commissions, the city council, and on up the political ladder. We need to listen to the other side and develop our debate. We need to attract more young women. College enrollment is now nearly 60% women. In the 25 to 29 age group, these are the women who most recently entered the workforce. Fully 36% have a college degree. College-educated women vote in much higher numbers than less educated. We need to demonstrate to them why our values are best and the best path for a prosperous and happy life for them and their families. So, a shameless plug, supporting the Clare Boothe Luce Policy Institute to bring articulate, attractive role models like Michelle Malkin and many of the women here today to college campuses is a perfect solution to engaging more young women. So I thank Clare Boothe Luce Policy Institute for having me here today, and thank you all.